Okay.
Who is this irresistible creature who has an insatiable love for the dead?
Yeah, Rob Zombie's on. So it says share on Facebook.
On the stage is only one sure way to bring the giant down. The strange
Now.
like a hunchback, juice on a sentimental news. Operation Filth, they love to love the wealth of an SS for making scary sounds. Hallucinating hack thinks a dollar read eats dollar bills. Goldfoot's machine creates another theme so beautiful they make you kill.
This is Freaks in the Basement. I am your host, Chris Stevens, but you can call me the Freak. I have the Freaks in the Basement locked up at the moment. They're in their nice padded rooms, bouncing off the walls. That's for your protection. They can't be trusted in public. Why is this door open? Oh dear, not again. The freaks have escaped. This isn't good. Did you hear an intake of breath right behind you? Hear the exhalation of breath. Feel the breath on the back of your neck. It's probably nothing to worry about. But then again, perhaps you should be very frightened. This is Freaks in the Basement. It's on the air. The freaks are on the loose, and no one's safe. It's time to wake up. Don't worry about coffee. I'll give you a jolt. a jolt of terror. Good morning. This is Freaks in the Basement on KBLP. I am Chris Stevens, your host. Welcome to the premiere show. I hope you enjoy it. I am going to read you a story and a poem of mine. The name of the story is The Snow Globe, and the poem is The Thick Ground Fog. I came up with the snow globe while watching a music video. I wrote the thick ground fog a little while ago while listening to cemetery sounds for Halloween. I had no ideas when I began writing that poem. I just started writing. I was really just messing around. I never know what I'm going to get when I do this, but most times it turns out pretty good. And now I guess I'll get to reading The Snow Globe. I found the snow globe a few days ago. It was on the ground, next to my car, in the parking garage at work. The parking garage was empty, except for my car, and there was no one around. I reached down to pick it up and thought I heard a woman speak, but she seemed to be a long ways away. I couldn't make out what she said. I looked around the parking garage. It was deserted. I shook my head, grabbed the snow globe, and stood up. As I stood up, I saw the reflection of a woman's face in the glass. I spun around, but there was no one there. I was alone in the parking garage. I shook my head, looked at the snow globe. It was a nice one. The scene in it was a nice city street. The houses were decorated for Christmas. I looked around the parking garage. There was no one around. I decided to take the snow globe home. I wasn't taking it home to keep it, but it was too nice to leave in the parking garage. It would get broken or stolen. If someone mentioned they lost it, then I would return it to them. I got in my car, put the snow globe on the passenger seat, and started my car. I pulled out of the parking spot and drove home. I didn't think about the snow globe again until I got home. As I was getting out of the car, I remembered it, grabbed it, and carried it inside. When I got inside, I went to put the snow globe on the table, then flipped it over. I noticed a switch on the bottom. I decided to see what it did. When I turned the switch on, the snow globe began to play Christmas music. Snow began to blow around in the globe, and the lights in the houses and the decorations turned on. I smiled, set the snow globe on the table, and watched it for a few minutes. I couldn't really see what was so special about them. It was interesting, but nothing more. I picked the snow globe up, turned it off, the music stopped playing, the lights turned out, and the snow stopped blowing around. I put it on the table, the snow settled, and I walked away. I didn't think about the snow globe again until later. I went to bed at my usual time that night and fell asleep almost immediately. I woke with a start early the next morning, 3:37 a.m. to be exact. I noticed the time on the clock. What woke me was Christmas music playing and a strange light in my room. I looked around. The snow globe was on the end table next to my bed. It was sitting beside the clock. I had no clue how it had gotten there or how it had turned on. I turned the lamp on, grabbed the snow globe, and turned it off. I noticed several things about it I had not noticed before. The first was there was writing on the base I had not seen before, which was odd. The writing was bright red, and the base was black. I couldn't make out the writing. It was in a language I didn't recognize. But this is what the writing was. Nix globus est a porta usque ad insanum delirium. I had no clue what it meant because I didn't recognize the language. And I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. The other thing I hadn't noticed before was inside the snow globe itself. There was a graveyard behind the church. I remembered the church had been there, but I couldn't remember the graveyard. I finally shook my head and got out of bed. I convinced myself that it had been there before. It must have been. Snow globes don't change. It's impossible. I took the snow globe to the kitchen, put it on the table, and checked the house. All the doors and windows were locked, and there was no one in the house but me. After checking the house, I went back to my room and got into bed. I convinced myself that I had walked in my sleep, even though I have never walked in my sleep to my knowledge. I turned the lamp off and went back to sleep. The next morning, or more correctly, later that morning, I woke up at my usual time. I got out of bed, glanced at the end table, and froze. The snow globe was back. It was on the end table. What the hell is going on? I wondered. I looked at the snow globe for a moment, then began to turn away and realized something was different about it. I looked at it again. There were people in the graveyard. They hadn't been there before. I was almost certain of it. I stared at the snow globe for a couple of moments, then shook my head and turned away from it. It didn't change. It couldn't have. Snow globes don't change, I mumbled. I got ready for work and didn't think about the snow globe again until I was ready to leave for work. I grabbed it on my way out the door, put it on the passenger seat, and drove to work. When I got to work, I left it in the car, but I asked around at work to see if anyone had lost a snow globe. No one had. When I got home that evening, I left the snow globe in the car and thought nothing about it. I went to bed at my usual time. I woke with a start in the middle of the night, 3:37 a.m. to be exact. The Christmas music and light was back. I looked at the end table, knowing exactly what I would see, the snow globe. It was where it had been the night before. I stared at it for a long time, then got out of bed. I turned the lamp on, grabbed the snow globe, turned it off, then froze. It had changed again. All the houses from before were gone, but there was a new house. It was beside the graveyard. The only thing in the snow globe now was the church, the graveyard, the new house, and the people in the graveyard. I realized the people had moved. They were closer to the house, as if they were walking toward it. I stared at the snow globe for a long time. I couldn't believe my eyes. It couldn't have changed. It couldn't have. I finally carried the snow globe to the kitchen, put it on the table. I checked the house. Everything was locked up, and I was all alone. I decided I had slept walk again, so I went back to my room, got in bed, turned the lamp off, and went to sleep. I woke at my usual time and got out of bed. As I began to walk away from the bed, I looked at the end table and stopped in my tracks. The snow globe was back. I'm getting rid of that damn thing. I'll take it back where I found it, I mumbled. I stood where I was for a moment, then nodded my head and began to get ready for work. When I was ready to leave, I grabbed the snow globe, walked out of the house, and got in my car. I put the snow globe on the passenger seat and drove to work. When I parked in the parking lot, I grabbed the snow globe and got out. I bent over to put the snow globe on the ground, then thought better of it. There was something wrong with it. I didn't want anyone else to find it. I stood up, carried it to the trash can, and threw it in. It disappeared from